Well, hello everyone, and here we are, therapists in conversation with one of our latest members, Willie Nicol, who's a life coach. Hello, Willie, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks, Leslie. Thank you for inviting me.
Not a problem at all. You've been a couple of times on some of the broadcasts that we've been doing, and I think it's about time people got to know exactly how you got to be there. So how did you start off? Where did it happen?
Long story because of my advanced years, but in a nutshell, university, joined the police, 31 years as a cop, went straight into corporate security, was made redundant after 7 years for my sins, and then had a decision to make what I want to do next. And during an interview for another senior security manager's job, the light bulb went on in my head and said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this anymore. It's not giving me joy. So I went home, spoke to my lovely wife who'd done some coaching training, and she said, why don't you consider coaching? Which, due to my analytical and evidence-based mindset, was anathema. I thought it was all mumbo jumbo. Coaching? Oh, no, that's not for me. However, a good lady, being a determined individual, booked me in a training course without telling me, paid for it as well. So I went in this 3-day initial life coaching training course, determined to show up to be the mumbo jumbo which I thought it was. Needless to say, after 3 days, I totally changed my mind and had a few, I don't know, road to Damascus moments, epiphanies, light bulb moments, when it occurred to me that, yeah, I like this and this is what I want to do. So that was 4 years ago, did some training, set my business up about 3.5 years ago, and decided to call it contentment coaching because it brought me contentment. And as I said to a client this morning, you can't walk into Sainsbury's and buy a jar of contentment. And you could even say, well, that's quite a difficult thing to define. And it may well be, but it's a very, very easy thing to realize when you don't have it. So that's what I try and bring to my clients, a bit more contentment in their life. That's a kind of brief overview.
I think we've discussed before that a lot of your training in the police force has actually become almost a niche for you to go into because you've got such experience there.
Quite so. I do some career coaching for retiring police officers, where I go to the pre-retirement courses run by the Police Federation and urge the officers not to make the same mistake I did, which is to jump into the first job that came along that looked half decent. The good thing about my previous experience, which I didn't realise until I'd been coaching for a wee while, was that the skills I developed and the training I'd had were actually kind of interchangeable. Asking the right questions, listening at the right times, coming up with different scenarios, suggesting solutions, not fixing things because my clients aren't broken, but just kind of guiding them along the right path. And my police career, and to a lesser extent my corporate career, was all about that, was helping other people, whether it be arresting them in the police or whether it be sorting out the security problems. And I've just kind of transposed that, along with my training in hypnotherapy, NLP, coaching, etc. Transposed these skills and my life experience into my coaching business. So that's kind of how I work my way around things to help people.
It's interesting, isn't it, that most of us, very, very many of us that end up in this, on this path, on this journey, there's that lovely word, we tend to have that epiphany time, that bit of in our foot, what am I going to do now? What? I don't really like this anymore. It's not serving me. So it takes a big leap of faith actually to do that. And possibly, do you think if your wife hadn't paid for that course, would you be doing this?
No, I don't think so. I'd have stuck to the thing I knew, which is about law enforcement, security, investigations, compliance, that kind of thing. So possibly being made redundant was the best thing could happen to me, followed by my wife doing what she did. And the funny thing was they kind of occurred at about the same time. I was told that I was at risk of being made redundant. Then the course came up. I was still employed at the time. After the course, the life coaching training course, I was then informed that I would be made redundant. But my reaction to that news was totally different, because the epiphanies or light bulb moments I'd had made me realise that there's no point in me jumping up and down, stamping my feet, becoming angry, bitter or resentful, because none of these things ever made a situation any better. It only made it worse. And I kind of berated myself because I thought, you should have known that, Willie. But I'm only human.
This is true.
And I say that to many of my clients. Stop beating yourself up. You're only human. That thing you did, or that mistake you think you made, or that wrong path you chose, hey, these things happen. So when I made the decision, and quite a bold decision as it were, because I have no business experience, to set up a business, well, that's been a huge learning curve. I'm slightly better at it now than I was at the start. But the win-win for me is I'm able to help people with what I euphemistically call their stuff, because everyone has stuff in their life, stuff they want to get rid of, stuff they want to make better. We all get stuff. So to be able to help people with their stuff and make a living out of it, the money, without being too flippant, is not the be all and end all. It's the ability to help people. But I still need to put food in the fridge and pay my bills, since I no longer have an employment. So it's a kind of, I don't know, win-win, I think, is the situation. I have a friend who's a coach. She's a business coach, and her coaching is win-win, because she teaches business people how to have a good business and a good life. And that's essentially it. Having a good life, being the best person you can be, or the best version of the person yourself that you can be, which is what I do with a lot of clients, and saying, right, what is your name? Bob. Would Bob like to be a better version of Bob? And Bob nods his head. I say, okay, we're going to create Bob Mark II, the updated, upgraded, better version of Bob. How does that sound? And although that sounds a bit flippant, that makes sense to a lot of people. Because
to be perfectly honest, though, it is simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's the aspiration of becoming, dare I say, a better person, a better human being, a better husband, wife, son, daughter, whatever it is, a better friend, a better business colleague, whatever. What's not to like? Because, as I said to my client this morning, it's like throwing a pebble into a pond. There is a ripple effect. So you improve yourself, if you like, become a better version of yourself, which will impact beneficially on you and all those about you, primarily your family, your friends, your business colleagues, whatever, and possibly, if you have a business, even your business. So who wouldn't want to do that? And he said to me this morning, Leslie, I wondered about paying the money to do your course, to do your program. And I knew there was going to be quite a bit of time involved, and there's certainly a bit of money involved, and I've got to do a bit of effort. And he said, I wondered if I was being selfish, investing in me when I could be doing something else with the time and the money. I said, well, how do you feel about that? Investing in yourself in terms of time, money, and effort. He says, I'm okay with it. I've decided to do it because the way things are going with me right now, I'm not the best. And I can't go into any details, and I want to make them better. So I am prepared to invest the time, money, and effort into doing that. And that's what some people have a problem with. Well, that's too much money, too much time.
I think that's because they're actually thinking of it as an expenditure that doesn't have any physical, tangible outcome that they can see. It's not like going out and buying a new car and saying, look, I've got a bright, shiny new car. That makes me feel good. makes you feel good for a while, but you still got to pay for it. And you still got it. It's going to sit there and it's going to devalue every time you open the door and put the key in the ignition, or press the button for the ignition these days, because they don't have keys anymore. But it's one of those things that I love the word invest, because it actually tells you that there is something that's happening inside yourself for yourself. And this idea that we have to keep giving to someone else, to those outside of us, without actually looking after ourselves, is really detrimental to the mental health, physical health, emotional health, and spiritual health as well. So it's one of those things as well that we are communicative people who don't communicate easily because of the kind of way, and particularly men, boys, men, and you'll know this yourself, coming from a very, I suppose it would be an old-fashioned thing to say, but a very male-orientated situation in the police. We often think of policemen, we very rarely think of police women, unless we're thinking, you know, things that we see on television or whatever. But there is a very kind of structured, you have to be strong, you have to be, you know, you cannot show your emotions, you can't get angry, and closing all that in causes issues. So you're actually in a position whereby you know how that works. So you know how to kind of open the door, unpeel the layers, and allow them to invest that time and effort to get it out.
Absolutely, you're bang on about particularly men. And when I joined the police 40-something years ago, it was a very male-dominated organisation. There were very few female officers. That changed gradually over the years. It was a very macho environment. You couldn't show fear or weakness in front of your colleagues, never mind in front of, shall we say, your clients, bad guys. And you developed that kind of body armor where you kept everything in here, and that was it. I was heavily influenced by my father, who had been called up just at the end of the Second World War and was in the army. So he had his set of values, which I kind of absorbed by osmosis, if you like, and some of which weren't particularly aligned with my own, but I respected what he'd done, and his standards and his values and his perceptions, if you like. But the good thing about doing what I did then is that, yeah, I can totally relate to the struggles that some people can have, particularly men, in opening up, showing their emotions. I mean, my father, the manly handshake was about as emotional as you got, or a pat in the back. You know, there's none of this, you know, hugging and all that kind of malarkey. And it's not a good thing, I don't think. You should be able to express your emotions up to and including having a good greet, which occurred to me actually at the very end of that first 3-day training course. For no apparent reason, Willie burst into tears. And I can't explain it now. I couldn't explain it then. It's just something that just snapped, not in a bad way, in a good way. And to my intense embarrassment in front of 30 odd other people, I suddenly bawled like a baby for about, I don't know, 20 seconds. And the good thing about it was, Leslie, everyone in the room just turned around and looked at me with compassion.
You were accepted.
Acceptance, love, whatever you want to call it. And I didn't feel bad. And I thought, I haven't cried since I was age 10 and got my last tooth out, right? But I got over my embarrassment, doing what I normally do, which is with the introduction of a bit of humour. Like, okay, Willie's fine now. Willie's back in the room. No need to panic. No need to panic. And I got a laugh. And they probably laughed out of sympathy, right? But I did feel a lot different after it. And that's possibly when the first seeds were sown. You know what? This might be something for me. There's maybe something in this for me. And met a lot of lovely people during my training. And the more I did, the more I thought, yeah, this is the path I want to take. And this will be 4 years later, or almost 4 years later, still enjoying it, still getting a great deal of satisfaction out of it. I mean, what's not to like about doing your job, if you like, or doing your work, thoroughly enjoying it, having a great deal of job satisfaction, that old phrase, and being paid for doing something you love. I wish I'd found this out many, many years ago, but that's life.
And you found the fountain of contentment.
Well, I don't know about fountain of contentment, but it's all up here and in here, right? Yeah. You can't buy a jar of it in Sainsbury's or anywhere else for that matter. It's all in here.
Or maybe what I should have said was the source.
The source, yes, quite
the
so.
Source.
The source of anything,
yes,
is within you. Happiness, contentment, pride, whatever good stuff, if you like, which you value in your life, is already there. You just need to tease it out.
Yeah. And the other thing I was thinking about, talking about teasing things out, was with conversation we were having lately about you working with your local Chamber of Commerce, with the youngsters there particularly, and helping them to decide what it is that they're going to be doing or how they're going to be using what they use. Yes,
it's I now learned just during the week there that this is a nationwide organisation. It's called Developing Young Workforce, DYW, and it's kind of bolted on some occasions to the local Chamber of Commerce, because there's a kind of crossover synergy there. And I was asked if I would do some workshops on essentially social skills, soft skills, like communication skills, presentation skills, confidence building, things like that. And I thought about it, well, I do that with my clients. Okay, these clients, if you will be a lot younger, and how will they react to seeing this old fogey rapidly on for 2 hours? Although I do try and make it interactive and amusing, and it's worked quite well. A lot of things like the confidence building presentation skills, resilience and assertiveness was another workshop. Things that are not taught at school.
Mm.
You either learn it kind of as you go along, or you can read a book on it, or you are deficient in that area because you don't know what the hell it is. So that's my function, is to supplement that with, have you thought about, what about this, and so on and so forth. And it's a very good response. I'm just waiting for the official feedback, but the unofficial feedbacks are very good.
Would you be open to going into schools if someone was to ask you?
I was asked this question. The answer is probably yes, right? But I don't deal with as clients, I don't deal with young people. I have a friend who does that for children, teenagers up to young adults. I tend to be more in the adult field, although one of my latest clients is only 20. But I probably would be, given the right circumstances and the right structure and the right framework, if I felt comfortable delivering what they wanted delivered. The DYW plan is that they're developing skills that their employers either don't have the time or the knowledge to impart to them, because they're in as apprentices or temporary workers, and there isn't really time to teach them about communication skills or presentation skills or confidence building or whatever. And they were delighted to have that facility given to them through a grant provided by the government or whatever it was, to have someone else, a third party, I suppose I'm actually a fourth party, if you like, because I'm working for them, to deliver that kind of learning, training, coaching, whatever you want to call it.
It's actually a lot about mindset, isn't it? It's about letting them understand about what mindset is and how it works and how they can actually be in control of their mindset.
Very much so. I actually did a presentation at a networking group called Mindset, right? And the word mind and set, two separate words, if you like, very short. You can be used in all sorts of contexts and meanings. I don't mind. Mind how you go. You can put your mind to it. You can achieve great things if you have the right mindset, state of mind, whatever it is. So I was once challenge, how would you describe what your mind is? I thought, that's a very good question. How on earth can you define mind in terms of what we're talking about, mindset? And the analogy, and this is during one of my training courses, was that your mindset's like the surface of a pond, or your mind's like the surface of a pond. Generally speaking, quite calm when everything's going well. And then sometimes life gets a bit blowy, windy, and the surface of your mind gets a wee bit choppy. But when the wind dies down, it's fine. But life being as it is, will throw a big rock into your duck pond, like maybe made redundant. And it gets a bit choppy, and you're not calm and relaxed or contented, because as I was angry, bitter, a bit scared about what was going to happen to me financially, and so on and so forth. So the trick is to keep your duck pond nice and flat and calm by not adding to the rocks that have already been thrown in by life. And my anger, bitterness, and resentment was just like having more rocks thrown in. And was my duck pond, i.e. my mind, ever going to become calm and relaxed again? Obviously not. So the moral of that story is, when you're tempted to throw a rock into your duck pond, just leave them lying on the floor, because it never makes it any better. So mindset, I haven't used that analogy with the young apprentices. I'm not sure it's appropriate for them, but we do talk about mindset and resilience and assertiveness. And another thing we touched on was having the confidence and the ability to say no.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. And I thought, well, I'll cheat a wee bit. When your boss asks you to do something, you say, well, you've already asked me to do A, B, and C. So which one of them would you like to ditch? Do item D you've just given me? Which is a very reasonable response. And hopefully said boss will wake up, smell the coffee, and realise that perhaps I'm overburdening that young person. That was a big takeaway for one of them. I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to use that. Really. Thank you.
There's a lot of this idea that we have a kind of people pleaser situation that goes on, and it comes to us with the beliefs and values, particularly that we inherit. And I think that, people like us, it's our job to just separate what is actually our belief and value and what is coming from someone else. And if the two mix nicely, that's fine. If they don't, then we have to examine that and understand that maybe we're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you're doing it for the right reason, then that's fine. But I think it often takes someone, a third party, coach, therapist, whichever, to actually show you the perspective to say, hang on a minute, is that really mine? Does that belong to me? And actually to say to your boss, no, that's not my job. I don't get paid big bucks enough to do that. That's yours. You want me to do that? I want a rise.
Well, that was one of the young people said she was apprehensive about saying no to her boss and just took on the extra work. And how did that make you feel? I asked her. It made me feel a bit weak. And did you have to do more work and work more hours and get stressed? Yes, I did. Then we got on to, well, which other job do you want me to ditch to do the new job, if you like? And I suggested to her it's perfectly acceptable to say no in a polite manner and say, no, I'm actually really, really busy just now with all the other work you've given me. Right? I can't possibly do that, or something else will suffer. And it's not just in a work situation. We very often feel compelled to agree to things that we don't really want to do because we might be a people pleaser, or we don't have the confidence to say, sorry, can't do that. And it gets back to what I maybe touched on earlier, that looking after yourself is not selfish. Self-care is not selfish, is the phrase. And because becoming a better version of you, an improved version of you, will impact beneficially on you and those around about. And not being true to yourself, being true to your own values, is on one level quite debilitating or aggravating or stressful. And I do this in my career coaching, saying, define your values, your standards, if you like, look at a prospective employer or business and see if the values of that business or employer align with yours. Because if they don't, as I found out to my cost, that these don't align, you're going to be miserable. And when I was employed by that particular company that I won't name, they had terrible values and standards, despite all the mission statements, visions, investors in people, and so on and so forth. It was a very, very toxic culture, which I didn't enjoy because that wasn't me, right? And on the other hand, it's futile to have, if you like, high standards or good values and expect everyone else to be the same, because you'll only end up disappointed. As my lovely wife said, why are you annoyed at that person not meeting your standards? Because you've set the standards quite high, without being modest, and they haven't met them, so there's no point in you getting annoyed about it.
Because they're not their standards.
Exactly. I said, well, you could try and raise their standards or show by example, but at the end of the day, and I say this to a lot of people as well, you can't change that person and their standards. You can only change your reaction to your view that their standards are poor.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've changed that reaction, once you've accepted it, well, it's a lot easier for you and it's a lot easier for them.
It comes down to expectations.
Oh, very much so.
You know,
Expectations.
and we all come, you know, like you're talking about stuff. For me, a lot of that stuff is expectations, and it comes in a big bag. And basically, nobody ever shares their expectations. It's like the last roll.
Expectations can be good and bad.
Yeah.
If you expect someone to act in a particular way that you would have acted and they don't, you are disappointed, downhearted, might even be angry.
Mm.
So if your expectations are possibly too high or not attainable, if you set yourself too high expectations and you fail to meet them, that's very negative. And then
very stressful as well.
Very stressful. You beat yourself up going, I didn't manage that. But was it a realistic expectation in the first place?
Kind of outward validation as well, isn't it? You see somebody else doing something and you think, they make that look so easy. How come I can't do that?
Well, that brings me on to another point, comparisons, right? Comparing yourself with others is, generally speaking, always futile. Right? Why has that person got a flashier car than me, or a bigger house, or a better job, or is better at golf, or whatever it is? One of my recent clients, who's going through a wee bit of a bad patch, but he goes out to play golf on a Saturday morning, and he said, I keep looking at the other guys, and they're all happy, laughing and joking, and swinging the golf club and hitting the ball, and I'm so preoccupied with my stuff that I'm not quite as happy as them. Then I say, why can't I be as happy as them? Why can't I be as carefree as them? Why can't I enjoy myself as much as them? And I said to him, how's that working for you? Comparing yourself to other people. He said, badly. So the obvious answer is stop doing it.
And also, he's only seeing them on the golf course. He doesn't see what goes on in their house, what's on their bank accounts, and what's on their mind when they get off that course.
Exactly. I said, you don't know what they're like when they're off the golf course. Like, they might have a miserable life. Like, they might be facing bankruptcy or whatever. Right? You don't know. So making comparisons, and we've all done it.
Oh yeah.
Right? Compare ourselves to other people, and all sorts. They're better looking than I am.
It starts even before school, doesn't it? You know, like, why can you not be like your sister or your brother? Why can you, and right. Teachers have done it, like, oh, I had your sister in my class. And you kind of look at them and go, was that a good thing? Doesn't look like it was. Oh dear. So you've already set yourself up.
Quite. You're kind of setting yourself up for a fall, because if you're comparing yourself to someone else who, in your view, your map of the world is better than you in whatever context, right, and you then try and emulate them and kind of inevitably fail miserably, it's not a good place to be. No,
but there's always people like you, Willie, that we can go to when that happens. And I think also you're very right, and it's a cliche, of course, but the old airplane analogy where, when the oxygen mask comes down, you got to take the oxygen first yourself.
Very much so.
And we're basically the switch that pushes the oxygen masks down, aren't we? In a way.
That's a wonderful way of putting it. I haven't ever thought of it that way. But yes, I think we're there to say it's perfectly acceptable for you to look after It's not looking after number one, numero uno. It is being in a position in your own self where when the situation demands it, you're able to help other people.
Because you can't do that if you've actually expended all your energy and all your calm and logic and self-awareness. Because if you're in an absolute state, you're running about back-arse forward, you're never going to get to actually be the person that's going to be the one who can help people up, because you're going to be too busy running around trying to figure out where they are.
Very much so. The analogy is like you are the buzzing bee going from flower to flower to flower to flower, right? And you've neglected your bee family back in the hive. That's maybe not a particularly great analogy, but to the detriment of yourself and the people who rely on your support. So the businessman, he's so focused on his business because he wants to create a nice life for his family. But what his family want is more of his time, not more of his money.
Yeah.
And there is a balance to be made. My first wife's father was a businessman, and he worked crazy hours, but he had his pride in building his business up to provide for his family, and he created a very nice lifestyle for them. But he never saw him. And
he never enjoyed it himself.
Well,
possibly.
I think he enjoyed the material stuff, but he wasn't. I wasn't sufficiently close to him that we could talk about it. He was ex-military and quite kind of closed up. But after a couple of gin and tonics, a hell of a funny guy and a really good guy to be about. But without harping on about this, it's perfectly okay it's not selfish to look after yourself in order that you're better able to help and support other people. And I try and do that. I try and make sure I'm unreasonable Nick, as they say, in order that I can help as many people as I can. Because if I wasn't, whether it be physically or mentally, if I wasn't in a good place, I'd be useless to my clients. So I'm in a reasonably good place just now, and I get to help people, and they pay me for it, and then they say thank you after it.
So if anybody is looking for a straight talking, shoot from the hip counsellor and coach, how do they get in touch with you, Willie?
Well, my website is all the W's contentmentlifecoaching.co.uk. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. We could maybe put some contact details at the.
I was just going to say we'll do that. We'll put that in the little comments boxes on the channel as well.
Okay. Just to say that I offer a consultation. It's just a chat to see where you're at, what your stuff is, and how I can help. There's no cost involved. It can be done on the phone, it can be done over Zoom, or if you prepare to sample my coffee, you can come and visit my office in my house. So that's my offering, that have a chat first. If I believe I can help you, I'll tell you. If I can't, I'll tell you that too, and then maybe refer you to someone else. So if anyone is in that space, I'd be delighted to talk to you. Okay, well, thank you, Willie, and we'll see you very soon in another episode of Therapists in Conversation. Thank you, Leslie. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Cheerio.